Okay, we are continuing today with the sugya of Notein Taam Lifgam of Hilchos Tarovis. We're continuing with Siman Kuf Dalet. However, I just want to point out something from the end of Kuf Gimel. One thing to point out is in the Machas Yisrael Shekel, he just points out that anytime you have a pot that's it's always going to be, the assumption is, it's always going to be more than shishim in the pot compared to a little bit of shuman stuck to your pot. So even if you have a dirty pot, if you only put in the pot a little bit of food that you're cooking, then you might have an issue of not being batel b'shishim. But if the pot's going to be pretty full, it's always going to be batel b'shishim. Okay, that's interesting. Something else, if you look in the Pri Magadim, I'm not going to go through the whole thing or the whole sugya, but he discusses about Taam Lifgam by a kli cheres. So he quotes the Minchas Yaakov, who writes that since a kli cheres can never be, there's no way to kasher a kli cheres, so therefore he says, Behefsin Meruba, you're allowed to use it, lechatchila, a kli cheres, that has treif in there after 24 hours. That's one opinion. Also by a kli cheres, it's an interesting, the Pri Megadim here at the end, it's a good source for the, let's say you have porcelain dishes, or you have other earthenware. So this is one of the main sources that discusses the whole concept of maybe after 12 months it becomes mutter. We see that by wine. Gemara talks about after 12 months it becomes dry and it's no longer aser. So that's why some say it's okay after 12 months. And another thing is our porcelain or our dishes are generally very smooth and glossed with glass over it. That's another reason it's called shia. It's like the heart, which is, so therefore it's another reason why it's not nivla. The isser doesn't go in there. Anyway, I just mentioned it because this is where it's brought. The other thing in the Taz, where is it? The end of the Taz in Kuf Gimel, he also points out, just to know, he writes, Yesh omrim, ein omrim chanan be'eser lach shenivla be'heter lach. So this is just, it's good to know that there's an opinion, sometimes if it's from achlokas, sveika, whatever the difficult issues, that there's an opinion that says we do not say chanan whenever it's lach palach. The only time is in is by shari surim. By basar b'chalav, we can always say chanan, right? That's the more logical, easier to understand, that everyone agrees with. But when it comes to using the principle of chanan b'shari surim, some say chanan is only when it's a chaticha, a yavesh that's nichnas in alach. And it's in also one other thing, Rabbi Akiva Eger, he quotes the Minchas Yaakov also, that any time we have an issue of Eino ben Yoma, so we learned, something was cooked in a treif pot, or meat, milk, whatever it is, so we say after 24 hours, b'diavad, the food's always okay. You might have to kosher the pot if you want to keep using it the next time, but anytime we say b'diavad, a pot's more than 24 hours, then it's, so we say it's b'diavad, the food is now mutter, 100% mutter. So he just points out that there are times when l'maisa, if there's another sfeika, another issues, tzirufim, that you could be somech on the Rabbeinu Taam Shita Rashi that says after nighttime, that's also considered Taam Lifgam. We mentioned the Shita, just interesting that it's used sometimes in certain circumstances. Okay, now let's read Kaf Daled. Din achbar shenimtza b'yayin o b'sheichar. So now, what happens if you find a rat and it's lying, floating in your wine or your beer? What do you do? So we're going to learn here. We're going to learn that either it was cooked, or maybe it was cooked, or just we know soaking for 24 hours. Kavash kamavushal. So it's a machokas in the Gemara, but lahalacha, everyone holds kavush kamavushal. That's going to be the next siman. So let's see over here, how does it play out? In Achbara de Davra, you have this rat from the field, no tein ta'am lishvach. So the halacha is, this type of a rat, it has a good flavor. Shaharei ola shulchan malachim. We know kings, they used to hunt it down and eat them, and it was something that was considered, I guess, a delicacy. Aval achbara demata, but our city rats that we're more familiar with, misveikolan, it's a suffix. The Gemara says, so therefore, really it has the same din. It looks like there's two halachas over here. It has the same din. One is a vadai, one's a suffix, but lamaisa halacha, they're both considered vadai. It's the same halacha. Our rats, if we see them in our wine or in our beer, not wine, shechar v'chometz, beer and vinegar, definitely not wine. We're going to see. So if you see it in one of these two liquids, then it's a question if it's mashbiach or imhu pogem, or if it makes it worse. And so there, lufichach, halacha, we say, we're talking about deraisas over here, or whatever, the nifsak halacha is, it's 100%, it makes it a problem. We assume the halacha, we have to be choshesh, it's l'shvach, or we know it's l'shvach. Therefore, yim nafal l'sheicher l'chometz b'tzonim. So if you find it in a liquid, it's cold, v'hesiro shalim, so you see it land in there, you pull it out. You get, build up the courage and just pick it up and throw it out. Im lo shaha b'tocho me'et le'et mutar. If it wasn't in there for 24 hours, then obviously the rat's not mutar. We're talking about your shechar and the chometz. It's all mutar to drink. Aval im hayaro teach, or if it was boiling, or filatzonin v'shaha b'tocho me'et le'et, or it was cold but it was there for 24 hours, vein shehesiro shalim, then it doesn't really matter anymore, because the ta'am went in there. So even if you pull it out, shalim, or it gets cut up into tiny little pieces, you put it in the blender and you mix it in. It's not going to make a difference. Both cases are going to be aser. Even if you can filter it out 100%, it's not going to make a difference. Even if it became liquefied and it's mixed in lagamre, it's all a liquid. And there's no mamashas there, nothing you can feel or see. It could only be mutter if it's shishim kenegdo, because it was cooked in there, or kavush kemavushal. So therefore, the only way it's mutter is if it's shishim kenegdo.
Why don't we say buried?
Well, you're taking it out. You take it out, and now everything in there is still aser. Right, that's why it's aser. Let's keep reading. Ve'im nitchatach l'chatikos dakos. Now, what happens if it gets cut up into little pieces? V'hu be'inyan she'eno yachol l'saneno, and you can't remove it. It can't be filtered. Okay. For whatever the reason is, such as it's too thick. If you have a thick soup, you can't, if it's a clear, thin broth, you can filter out all the vegetables or little pieces. But if it's a thick soup, so then you can't really filter it out. It won't go through the filter. So you can have little pieces. So here we're talking about a case where it wasn't roteach, or it wasn't kavash kamavushal, and you cut it up into pieces, it's still going to be aser. Why? Because you can't remove it. If you can remove it, then it will be mutter. We had that case. Here we're talking about it's tiny, you cut it up into tiny little pieces, and you can't pick it out, and it's machal av, it's already mixed into something that you can't put it through a filter or a strainer, or you don't have one, whatever the case is. Hakol aser, now everything becomes aser. Ve'ein shem bittel, and you can't say it's bittel. Dechayshinan shema yifka b'mamashal shel eser v'lo yargish, because maybe there's going to be a little bit of mamashas there, little pieces. Shel iser v'lo yargish. This means um, really it could be nikar, and it's there, but lo yargish, you're not going to pay attention to it, and you're just gonna have it. Obviously, if you feel it with your tongue or you look for it, it could be nikar. That's the case. But lo yargish, you're just gonna take a bowl of soup and take your spoons and you're just gonna swallow it. And so therefore, really, there's isser there. It's nikar if you're looking or you're feeling, but lo yargish, you might just not pay attention. Haga. ודווקא בשרץ יש לחוש אם נשאר שם שלא יוכל להוציאו, אבל בשאר איסורים אין לחוש. So here's the Rama. It seems like the Shach goes with this Rama, and we'll see in a moment that this Rama is not like the Shulchan Aruch. It's not, the Taz argues, the Aruch HaShulchan argues, and Kimat all the Achronim, and Psakim Mechuvas, he has a long list, the Grach, Chachmas Adam, and others. He says basically all the Achronim disagree with this Rama, and everyone holds the same as the Shulchan Aruch. In other words, here, let's see, how are we going to explain this step by step? I think what I'm going to do first is let me jump to the Taz. This is the end of the long Taz in Aleph. So he just points out, others point out basically the same thing, that we say Chatzi Shir is Asar Minatara. Of course, even a little bit of an Isser, you get this rat that got cut up into little pieces, everything is Asar. And any time you have something that's Nicker, it's 100% Asar. You can't leave Mamashas lying around when you know it's a Mamashas of Isser. You always have to remove it. The only time we say things are normally simply batel is if it's lach, bilach, and it's not discernible. Or if it's yavesh v'yavesh, the items are discernible, but they all look the same. So now to you, they're not discernible. You can't distinguish between one and another. So yavesh v'yavesh or lach bilach is simple. But anytime you have a yavesh, a chaticha mixed in with a lach, so then it doesn't matter if it's a tiny little piece, if it's less than a kazayas, less than a lentil, and adashah we'll see in a minute, it makes no difference. Always going to be usr, and it always has to be filtered out and removed. Otherwise, it's 100% usr. If it can't be removed, you can't have it. That's why the Shulchan Aruch writes, hakol usr. And it makes no difference if it's a sheretz or a shari surim. Everything's the same. There's no difference. So that's right. That's basically what you see. This is gonna the who? The Rama. So we're going to see. I'll go over the Rama in a moment a little better. So then, when we see what the Taz also brings in the case of butter mixed in with the liquid of milk. It's a machlokas we're going to see later on by butter. What about the liquids of milk? Basically, the Taz points out that anytime it's possible, or you might come to eat the chaticha by itself. Now, this is where the Taz seems to be a little bit different, perhaps, than the Shulchan Aruch and other Achronim. You can look at the Rambam, or he brings in Machalas Asuris, I think it's in Perek. He brings it in here. You see the Kesef mission over there. His whole point is if it's nikar or not nikar, and then that'll define it. And Pashtus, it doesn't matter if it's nikar by looking with your eyes or feeling with your fingers or your tongue. If it's nikar, it's a problem. If it's not, then it's no longer a problem. The Taz seems to say it's more of an issue, a little bit more of an issue of we're afraid you might come to eat the chaticha by itself. And so that's why, like, you might rub it out with your fingers or your fork or your tongue, and then you're going to end up eating it by itself. He compares it to the case of butter over there. We're going to see probably in a couple weeks. It's in a few weeks, a few simanim away, that it's when you have butter with milk together. So there's no chashash you're going to end up eating the milk by itself. Everyone just wants the butter. So he seems to say it might be a little bit discernible, but if you're going to eat it together, then it's not a problem. Anyway, but according to the Shach and the Ramah, he says the only time it's a problem with these little pieces is with a sheretz, because it's from the Shmona Shratzim. And therefore, it's an added chumrah. Normally, even with small chatichos within a liquid, it is batal. It's an important shita. It's the Ramah and the Shach. Little pieces mixed in with a liquid could still be batal. However, but again, all the other achronim don't understand because we know you have to remove it. But anyway, it's here.
Because adasha is the sheer tuma.
No, I know. I'm about to explain. Hold on. The reason why he's more everyone disagrees with the Shach and the Ramah because it's hard to understand how you're allowed to leave little pieces in there. The reason why is that whole premise is what they have the issue with. So then, the reason why the Ramah is all of a sudden machmer against his own opinion for a sheretz is because there's a special hekesh and a din by tuma by the Shmona Shratzim that it's even tamei by the size of a lentil, of an adesha, or even a koshehu if it's an aver shalim. So therefore, they're worried only by a sheretz, maybe it'll be the size of an adasha. Again, not even a tiny piece. Really, it's because of an adasha, you're worried about a tiny piece. But really, all you're worried about is an adasha. That's the only size you're worried about being mixed in. And that's when the Ramah is machmer. The Ramah is machmer only for a sheretz, really only for the size of an adasha, or an aver shalim koshehu, whatever the smallest aver is. Limb. Okay. Let's see if that's enough. The Shach himself writes the whole, it seems to be the Shach and the Ramaz doesn't seem to follow the Ran, and whatever, he goes into the whole thing. But the Shach does want to be machalik between lach balach, yavish yavish, and yavish balach. So that's the back and forth. Yeah, of course. That's what we said. I think, let's go on. The Nekudas HaKesef, points out it's obviously we're talking a case of chaticha in a mashke. That's the whole issue. Let's see if there's anything else we want to point out before we get into base. I think that it'll do it. Fine. Just an interesting question pointed out. What happens if a person dips, or an animal dips their finger in a boiling hot soup, and it's not batal b'shishim? So all the poskim say it's mutter, it's not an issue. Exactly why, it's a whole question. But while it's alive, or I don't know, with the skin, it's not polate, it doesn't go in, and it's not an issue. Okay, so don't worry about it. Okay, let's go to bed.
When they make lobster, it doesn't become usher until it dies.
Bet. I don't know. They all say it by people, it's not a problem, and many say it's the same by any Baal Chai. But okay, it's a better question than answer, but it's not an issue. Bet. Im nafal liyain v'shemen olashar mashkim. Pogim bevadai. So this is the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, that any rat that goes into wine or shemen, that's everyone agrees with, but he adds, or l'shar mashkim, it would be fat or anything, any other item. The only time that a rat might be a good flavor is for something that has a bit of a tart flavor, something, not spicy, but something like beer and vinegar. But for something that's wine and shemen, that the Rambam writes is supposed to be sweet, for sure it's going to be poging. The question is, the Rambam doesn't discuss shar mashkim, so what's the halacha by shar mashkim? So according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Pri Chadash, and some, it's mutter, it's 100% mutter. We're going to see, according to the Ramah and most Ashkenazi poskim, it's going to be Aser unless it's Hefsid Maruba, or certain extenuating circumstances. Fine. So yain v'shemen, everyone agrees is okay. It's the shara mashkim that's a machlokas, right? That's the Shach quotes the Marshal. Exactly what's the Shach's opinion, I'm not sure, but probably would follow the Rama with the Marshal. So let's keep reading. Ve'ein sarich shishim levatel pleitatos, right? So any of these cases, you don't need shishim to be mevatel. Aga ulefiz. Which case?
This one you just read, that if it's pagan, you don't need shushan?
Yeah, for sure. That's what we've been learning the whole past siman and this siman. Anytime you generally need to have rov heter. We just, again, chazatz chazara for kuf gimel, but here we're saying again that, right, anytime it's pogim, it doesn't need to be shishi. Ve'ein tzarich shishim avato hagao lefi zeh im nafal leshuma nami dinahachi. So according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Rama points out, shar mashkim also. So certainly, if you see it in oil or shuman, fat, it wouldn't be a problem. V'yesh machmirim b'shuman, and some say, wait. And this is the opinion lechatchila by the Rama, by Shuman Ramachmer. The only time Ramekel is by Yayin v'Shemen and Dvash. That's the cases that everyone agrees is Mekel. Everything else, right? Sheikhar and Chometz, everyone agrees is Aser. Yayin, Shemen, Dvash, everyone agrees is Mutter. It's everything else that's a machlokas. V'yesh machmirim v'Shuman v'afili im hu kasha, even if it's hot, it's hard right now. The faninu. Right now we're looking at it and it's congealed or it's hot. It's hard. Im shavchu midei yom shuman b'kedera. We're talking about a case. Maybe every day they're pouring some hot shuman in there. And so v'yesh l'safek shama ha'achbar hayasham keshi'iru alav shuman roteach. So maybe while it was in there, it got poured on it, and every piece of shaman has become, every piece of fat, liquefied fat that's hot is now becoming aser. As it gets poured in, as it touches the rat, at least kadei klipa, if not kulo, even if it's just iroid, because as each pouring is actually touching the rat itself. Hakol aser, afilu yeshishim b'shuman, neged kol achbar, even if it's shishim, because it got poured in there and it's all touching the achbar itself. But what if you pour in the shemen first and then afterwards comes the rat? And now the shuman is also, it's hard in front of us. And now you find the achbar. All you have to do is just remove the immediate shuman right around.
On the top.
Nimsa achbar alav. Okay.
On the top.
Okay. Velo machzikan iser. We're not worried about it. Shema haya hashuman rach keshanafal sham. The kavush have kemavushal. The mutter mikor suffix sveka. Because maybe when it went in there, well, so it's a question is, was it hot? Then when it went in there, maybe it wasn't hot and maybe it was liquefied. You might say kavash kamavushal. Safik nafal sham kishaya kasha, but maybe it went in there and it landed into and it got dented in there while it was completely congealed and it was cold. And maybe when it went in there, it was soft, so it sinks in. But then, before 24 hours came, it became completely solidified. Okay, so basically, really you have to look into each case by itself. But often you'll end up with a sveka. Fine. That's the main point. Let's just finish the last line here. Anytime you have this shuman that's aser lechol because of a rat that's there, I'm adding those words. We'll see in a sec. Aser laliko gamkem b'nei knesset. You can't use this kind of shuman to light your candles in a beit knesset. Mishum akriveu na'lefechatecha. It has to be something that's ra'oi to bring as a korban. Right? We see that from the pasuk of Malachi. It's the bizayon to bring something that's not appropriate to bring. If you can't eat it because it's ma'us, how can you bring that as a korban? How could you bring that to light candles inside a shul? Right. Oh, okay, but it's used for the halachas hakohen, korbanos. Okay, for right, and for all mitzvahs. I'm saying okay. The ikr limud, fine, in the Gemara. But anyways, let's just. What happens if you buy shemen in the store, and they sell it and it's manufactured for your menorah, but it's not really edible. So many point out, obviously, that's for the kavod of a Beit Knesset. We're talking about a case that's supposed to be ra'il achila, and now it's ma'us because a rat is in there, or it's putrid, or something like that. That's when it's a problem. But if it's beautiful oil that's made for your Beit Knesset, so most would say, of course, it's not a problem. There's no inyan for it to be ra'il achila. It's a problem for it not to be ma'us. Okay, discussing. But he points out, b'makom ha'hefsed, the ikar halacha is like the Shulchan Aruch, and therefore the only liquids that we say are really for sure lishvach, is what's it called? Sheichar and chometz. And everything else, b'makom hefsed, you could be meko. All right, we'll finish tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.